Hi everyone, I am doing a paint pour tonight and I wanted to show you how it's done. So we're going to mix up some paints. We're going to take some pretty basic ones, probably a base color of black and then some others. Right now what I'm doing is adding Floetrol to each one of the little cups. And we want to do about half of Floetrol, which is a pouring medium. And once we do that, then we'll put in some paint, different colors. And then we're going to put a little bit of water in there so it activates the Floetrol within the paint. I'm just going to do this right here. I was supposed to have a class, but everybody was busy, so it's all good. Just wanted to kind of show you what I've been working on. I'm taking an old canvas that I was goofing around on, and I am just redoing it. So basically you just take your base paint, which in my case is going to be black at this time. I'm going to add about 1/3 of the way to up, and then I'm going to stir it really good. And you have to stir for a long time. This is the most time consuming, is mixing up this paint and making sure it's nice and mixed up. As you can see, it's still pretty thick, so we're going to have to add some water. So it looks like I used my water, so I'm going to hang on just a second. So basically what it is you add a little bit of water, then you mix it up. You don't add too much at once, otherwise you end up with a problem. And then you keep mixing it. And when you're doing this, you know it's mixed when it's not doing a mound on a mound, meaning the paint sinks right back in when you do this. And that's what it's doing right now. So you pull it up and it's sinking down. It's basically good to go. So then I'm going to take 4 other colors and mix them up. This is deep magenta. It's like a deep pink color. Again, put in about 1/3 of a cup in there, and I'm going to mix it up. And this is, like I said, the hardest part of it. I'm going to put a little bit of water in there, mix it up some more. It's okay if it gets on your canvas, we're going to pour over it anyway. Kind of looks kind of chunky right now, but you just got to keep pouring, or stirring, excuse me. It's kind of warm in my studio tonight. You know, it was 72 degrees outside when I was out earlier. I was doing some errands, helping a friend with Facebook. Had some issues, and I went out and mailed some envelopes to a friend, Ashley, and did my good deed for the day, I guess. So it still looks a little thick, so I'm going to put a little more water in there. Just a little bit. And then you got to keep mixing. It kind of looks chunky right now, but you got to keep mixing. So the canvas I have, like I said, is a canvas I am going to reuse. I'm going to re-pour on. And this one's still a little thick, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. You don't want to add too much at once, or you'll make it too thin. But this is the hardest part of it, is mixing up the paints. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. That's good. Whoops, don't spill it like I did. So I'm going to add, this is called green yellow. So the paints that I use, you can use most any paint. The paint, I usually recommend a dark and a light, a dark and a light, so there's contrast. Always wants contrast on this. It helps make it look better. So as you can see, it's very thick. So we're going to add a little bit of water here. Just a little bit. I might have gone overboard there, but I'll put a little more paint in there. I'm not sure I got enough. So basically, back to stirring. You really have to get your consistency correct. If you don't, what'll happen, there's a couple of different things. If it's too thick and it doesn't flow off your canvas, the paint underneath will dry quicker than on top, or vice versa, and the layers will be so thick that they'll crack. And basically, if your paint is too thick, it'll cause places where it'll dry faster than others, and it'll just crack the paint. So that's why it's really important that your consistency is correct. So that looks about right. Give that a go. So then my next color I had picked out, it's called Turquoise. Give it a good glob of paint. And of course, back to stirring. So basically, the medium that I use is Floetrol, and what it is an acrylic paint extender to make sure that it not only blends better, but it leaves it open a little bit, so that it's really used for house paint. So when they paint the house, but we use it in acrylic paints to keep it open a little bit so we can work with it. So we need to add a little water. Not too much at once, like I just did, I think. I don't know. We'll stir it up and see. Now it's coming around. Might need a little bit more water. Yeah. I'm thinking so. Yep. Just a little bit more. So basically, what we're going to do once we get these all mixed up is we put this in a separate cup. It's what they call a float cup, and we'll float each of these paints on top of each other and then put it on the canvas. Much better. There we go. So then I'm going to do my fourth, and I think what I'm going to do is go with, let's see, let's go with a deep blue. That's not the one I want. Well, I thought I had it out here. Apparently not. There it is. So this is a color called Brilliant Blue, or Primary Blue, I'm sorry. There is a Brilliant Blue too. but this is the darker of the two. So then I take this and mix it up as well. As you can tell, it's much darker than the turquoise. Now the Floetrol does change a little, the color a little bit when you're mixing it. It lightens it up, but when it dries, it darkens back out. So don't be too concerned about that. And of course, this is really thick, so we're going to put some water in there. We're going to mix it up really well. And when you're mixing it up, it's always good to get into the bottom and just kind of like you're whipping if you've done eggs or any foldovers for any kind of topping or anything like that. When it says to fold it over, it's just basically scooping underneath and stirring. And we look like we've got it right there. So I'm going to go back over to my black, stir it up, make sure it's good, which it is. And what I do with this one, because it's my base coat, I'm going to pour it on here. I'm going to get around the edges. And as you can may or may not be able to see, I have this canvas on push pins, so it keeps the bottom edge of the canvas from touching this mat here. And that's a lot easier for cleanup, and basically it's easy to spread it around and get it on the sides, because you want to do that. That's going to help you get into the corners when we spread around the paint. It doesn't have to be real pretty, just needs to cover the canvas. And get your sides, because we don't do that at the end. We do it right here. Want to cover up the sides really well. It makes it look like a more finished piece of artwork. So we're going to go over the edges a little bit. Pick up some paint, spread it against the edges. It's pretty basic, nothing spectacular. And we're just going to go and do this with this over here as well on the edges. Just make sure the edges are covered with your base paint. It doesn't have to look pretty at this point. You just want to make sure they're covered. And then when we get to putting all the paint on there and spreading it around, that's when you need to worry about catching all the pieces. So basically, I have a spatula that I normally do this with. I'm going to use it. But you can do it with a popsicle stick. It's not a big deal. So just go over it lightly, gently. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is to help move your other paint when we put it on there. So I'm going to put this to the side here, wipe it off a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is show you one of my cups. So basically we're going to put all these paints in together, and I'm going to put a little bit. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to do my blue first. And what's important with the floating paint is to go ahead and pour it down the side. So about half of it. And you see here, that's how I did it. So then I'm going to take my next color. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tip it down the side. About half of it, give or take. And don't worry if you drip on the canvas, it's not a big deal. We're going to spread around the paint anyway. So then do the same thing here, about halfway. And we're just layering the paint. This is what they call floating the paint. So it's not mixing per se, but just floating on each other. And about half of that. Put it back over. Okay, and then we're going to layer again with the rest of the paint. And then we're done with that. Then we're going to do the other half of the turquoise, layering it over the paint. It's floating there, as you can see. Then your green paint, bright green. And it's floating over the top there. And then you have the dark, deep magenta. And that's going down the side as well. So we're going to let that sit for a moment. I'm going to pop these all over into the trash here. So as you can see, down the middle and then to the side, I don't know if you can see it very well right there, you can see the different colors. So how we pour this is you pour it out the side that you poured down the paint, so it's the easiest and will slide out. Now the technique I'm going to show you is what they call the ring pour, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. My hand's not really steady right here, but you know, it is what it is. It makes some interesting designs. And as you can tell, the green and the blue mixed, and it made more of a different color of green of color. So you can do all kinds of little designs in here. And then capture that a little bit, and you can see in the cup it's really cool. All the different colors in there, all around. So then we've got this wonderful mess that we're going to rock all over. Oh, before I do that, I need to do something very, very important. We need to torch it to get all the air bubbles out, or it won't look, it'll look like somebody forgot to do something, you know, torch it. So basically what it is these air bubbles get trapped and it makes it crack. It'll also ruin your design as well. So I haven't put any silicone in here. I usually don't when I'm using Floetrol because it'll give enough sails when I stretch it out. So what I'm going to do is stretch it out. Now that I went ahead and... So in doing this, I'm going to one corner and then pull it back to the center. We're pulling this out. So then we go over to another corner and then pull it back to the center. Now this is how you're working the paint to get some of your cells. So we're going to pull in the center here as well, and then down to one corner. So The only sad thing about this is I'm used to using a bigger canvas, so I may have used a little too much paint. But that's okay, because it's all about the experience. But as you see, when you work with it and pull out the rings, it gives you more of the design, and the cells pop out. So I'm going to go ahead and let it rest here. And then I'm going to torch it again and see if I can get some more bubbles or cells to come out. I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but basically these bubbles will make really cool designs when you torch them out like this. Some people like to do just a little bit. I like a lot of cells. It gives it some texture and just some funness, which is really important when I'm doing art. I don't know about you, but fun is the name of the game for me. And it relaxes me, helps me to recenter myself and get my mindset back to a wonderful life. So, despite the COVID, I think we're all very blessed. And as you can see, all of these little cells are popping up. So when this sits, it usually takes 2 days to dry, sometimes 3, depending on how much paint you put on here. But you see these little bubbles here? These are the cells that I'm talking about that will pop up. And as you can see in the rainbow here, it's doing the same thing. Now, if your canvas is not level, it'll just slide off. So that's what I've done here, is I made a little bit of my table here is kind of warped in the middle. I'm trying to get that fixed, but in the meantime, I put something under here so it won't do too much of that tipping. But it'll probably take about 2 days to dry. Sometimes I've even had them take up to 3 days. When it's warmer like this, 72 degrees, 68 degrees, usually it's only a couple of days. If it's colder, like 50, 55, it can take up to 4 days. So you really want to make sure that it's dry before you pick it up. Also, what the really cool thing about these pours is no matter what happens here, these guys here are on a special mat that when it dries, I can just peel up the little skins and make jewelry out of them. And that's what I'm working on right now, is to find a jewelry manufacturer that I can buy at wholesale the little pieces and then sell the jewelry. So anyway, I just wanted to go online tonight, show you about all about the classes that I offer, and different color combinations, different ways you can do things. Thank you. Have a good evening.